Welcome to another edition of the Industry Insider Podcast, your promotional products podcast where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. And we're going to dive into that in just a second. But first, we want to talk about TechWeld, okay? TechWeld is USA made in a world filled with worry regarding overseas production and products. So TechWeld offers many USA made products to help separate themselves from the promotional product pack. Let's talk hand sanitizers. That seems to come up quite a bit on this show. So obviously due to coronavirus and the COVID-19 outbreak, this is something that's trending worldwide. Obviously, CDC has recommendations for sanitizer and hand washing to help prevent the spread of the disease. And they have many hand sanitizer SKUs that can help combat the spread of the virus. They've got a lot of FDA compliance as well. They're FDA compliant on their products in a time of uncertainty. Knowledge that the product is FDA compliant is key in allowing customers to feel at ease when placing their orders. So be sure to visit them at techweld.com for more information. You won't be sorry that you did, for sure, 100%. So ultimately, I am Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA. I'm joined today by three other awesome folks. Our favorite, Meg Erber from S&S Activewear. How are you, Meg?
Great. How are you guys?
We're hanging in there.
Yeah, it's tough this week for a bunch of first day of schools.
Yep. Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, depending on where you're at in the country, some schools may actually.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Sorry. For me.
Stephen McFadden, Perfect Promotions and More. How are you?
Doing well. We're actually in day 16 of school here, so we've been rocking and rolling with online.
And you guys, I'm online.
All online.
Yeah. How old are your kids, Stephen?
7 and 2.
7 and 2.
So we have a 7-year-old.
Okay, so I was gonna say, like, I wasn't exactly sure how old she was. I was like, man, could you imagine this being like your first year, like kindergarten, and having to do online schooling? Like, we talk about the seniors, like at the end of the year, graduating. Like, could you imagine your first year of school being home learning like that?
No,
that really rough too.
Yeah, second half of kindergarten was online, and so she kind of had the swing of things, but now still online. So
wow. Well, if you're watching and joining us live, we're also joined today by Jon Norris. Jon Norris is with Starline, but also founder, co-founder. What exactly is your title with Promo Standards?
Co-founder and chair of the board, I guess.
Boss man.
Boss man. Yes.
Yep, there we go. We'll rock with that.
There we go.
So Jon, for anybody that's listening that isn't aware of who you are or your record in the industry and history, I know it's pretty extensive, and so would like to just give you an open platform here, about 3 or 4 minutes, to just sort of give us some background on yourself and your history with the promo industry.
Yeah. And now, before we get started, I was trying to squeeze in 12 Americas as you were doing that invigorating ad read on TechWeld. But there was no pause. You were just like a robot ripping through that thing. I figured it would just help out the ad read, but I'll slide some in as we go.
There's some history with that.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We got it out there, and I'll just give a shout out to them too. I wrote down. I have this notebook where I write down a bunch of weird things. So all I wrote down was FDA. So we're good. So I'm Jon Norris. I'm the vice president of operations at Starline. I'm also the chair of the Promo Standards Board, one of the co-founders, probably about 6 years ago. There's about 10 of us that started that. Industry-wise, I guess I've been in the industry since 2005. I got involved right out of college. I was an engineer by training, so I'm a bit of a nerd on that side. I really started out doing kind of data analysis and production methods at Starline. Realized that to do a lot of that stuff, you really need to know about the tech, right? So I kind of got involved, went back to school, got a master's somewhere along the way at night, and then kind of moved up, took over some of the technology aspects of Starline. Now kind of transitioned more into kind of a hybrid tech and operations to kind of make the two of those work well together. But so I oversee IT, customer service, production, warehousing, our graphics department, stuff like that, Starline. So that's Starline side. Kind of also came up through the PPI ranks. Dale, Dedham, and I kind of co-founded the Tech Summit, which is a event that PPI does. That was probably about 6-7 years ago.
Coming up this month, right?
So there's actually a virtual Tech Summit that is in 3 weeks. So that it actually, it's an online event. It's stretched out over 5 days. Definitely check it out. It's not that much, and you get a credit for the Future Tech Summits. So I'm going to actually do a few sessions there. It's a pretty cool lineup of industry people, so hit that up if you haven't. What else? All right, promo standards. So now I am currently involved with promo standards. Been the chair of the board for 2 official years. We have a big push going right now for membership, trying to drive adoption. But I guess we can get into that whenever you guys are ready. But promo standards, for those of you who don't know, is a open standard really that is allowing our entire supply chain to communicate seamlessly, right? So it's not a site. It's not what EPSA was trying to be years ago. It's a really industry-wide collaboration effort, and it's actually an official not-for-profit. So we're a 501c6. We have a board, bylaws, budget, all that fun stuff. And then as of about 3-4 months ago, we have official members. So a lot's happening with promo standards right now. So it's good.
Very cool.
Did I use my 3 minutes? Did I go over? Sorry.
No, I think you're good. You're right at the 4-minute mark.
All right, good.
We'll call it that.
Yeah, I know. I have problems shutting up, so we.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. So
yeah, no, it's good. So yeah, the topic for today is promo standards. Obviously, we need to talk promo standards. So if you're not familiar and you're listening, we actually at Industry Insider did a podcast about promo standards probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
But we're
all wrong. Everything.
We say
you missed. It was a big miss.
We say we're the industry insiders, but look, we're really just 3 people giving our perspective on things. And I think something as involved as promo standards and as I guess technical as it can be. I think there's a lot of folks out there that really just don't understand 100% what it is. So first of all, I'll apologize and I'll fall on the sword. Like anything that was misspoken about. It definitely was not intended that way, but we're here to sort of clear that air first of all, but then we really want to just dive into promo standards. We're really glad that you were able to join us today to sort of dive into that and talk promo standards and really get the info out to folks.
Glad we jumped right on that too. Waited only about a year to.
Yeah, you guys are a quick recovery, right? Well, I listen and I'm like,
hold on, because I'm pretty sure Meg sent you an email like a week after that show, and it took a year to reply to me.
I had this actual truth. I was like, oh man, I remember Meg messaged me on Facebook like 7 months ago. Now's a good time to respond.
Fair enough.
Okay.
It happens.
So maybe I'm just thinking the best place to start would probably be like, what is it?
Yeah,
what is it? Okay. Let's. I don't have a whiteboard here and upstairs where I could just like draw pretty little pictures. But pretty much, what it is, it's a set of standards, right? Basically, at the core, it's a document, a few pieces of technical code that allow. Let's just do a simple thing right now. So you are obviously a Facilis member. So Facilis is one of the founders of Promo Standards. So Starline hosts, me at Starline, I host a whole set of endpoints, that's what they're called. But basically I'm hosting, following the standard, Promo Standards, a link on my website, URL, that Facilis automatically calls. So every hour, Facilis goes out and reaches out to Starline and says, give me the order status updates for all of these orders that have been placed today in our system. And I feed that information back to them in a standardized way, the same exact way they would call and get it from HIT, from PCNA, from SNS, from all these guys. They get the exact same response. So that way they know that if I integrate using one standard, I can connect out to my entire supplier base and then get back the pieces that I need. So there is let's make this go away. Right now, there are about 150 different suppliers who are involved in Promo Standards. So meaning that I have an endpoint for order status, order shipment notifications, inventory, product data, product pricing, all my images, my media, my invoices, my POs. So I have about 9 different endpoints where if you as a distributor or Facilis member want to get my invoicing data, you use your credentials automatically behind the scenes. Your system talks to my system, pulls it back in a standardized way. Basically, that's what it is. Now, there's a lot more details that fold it together, but it's not a website. It's not a UI that somebody does. It's pretty much a way for your developers to communicate and your site to communicate with my structured data and know what you're going to get back in response. So that's the nuts and bolts.
That's our podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
We're wrapping it up.
Invigorating.
All right, cool.
A standard way to do things, like, hey, this is how all your POs have to be.
Yes, but there is flexibility, right? So obviously when we crafted this, Sanmar's involved, there's Halo, Facilis, Staples, a lot of the large suppliers, PCNA hit. We kind of collectively saw what the failures of the past were and tried to create a standard that's flexible enough. So for a PO, we know that decorators and apparel people do things slightly different than hard goods suppliers. So we tried to mold all that and create one set of standards that acknowledge those things. So like the first time we didn't have an apparel supplier involved, and we missed the concept of multiple warehouses for inventory. So we went back and added that in as a second round. So now our inventory feed pulls location by exact warehouse, by SKU, obviously all the way down to the nitty gritty, and allows people to tie into specific FOB points and warehouse locations. So, there's a lot going on to it, but at the end of the day, we really completed the full life cycle of an order, from purchases to inventory to product data to invoices, and then we're getting after it.
I feel like Promo Standards had a huge footprint at PPAI Expo this year, probably bigger than I've ever seen it before. And I think there's something to be said with that. Obviously, Promo Standards is growing hugely with the people that are getting involved with the different various endpoints and all that good stuff. So I'm sure you could actually, I'll pose this as a question. Do you think there's a point in time where the promo industry is basically 90 to 100% all promo standards, like where, basically suppliers and distributors aren't working with each other unless you're part of promo standards?
90% is way too big, right? If we get to half, I'll tell you, half of my business at Starline last month was conducted with distributors who are integrated in promo standards. So now I'm a bit of an outlier, but there are 40 suppliers that are larger than Starline. So it's not something that you don't have to be a Sanmar, an SNS, or an Alpha Broder to do this. Sorry, that's the key. So will there become a point? What Promo Standards is really doing, we're reducing the transactional cost of the order, right? This isn't about, trying to, take our jobs and replace people. The game shouldn't be trying to get this Uniball pen to be 3 cents cheaper, right? It's trying to get that transactional process of the back and forth of the order cut down from, if it's at $10 today, cut it to $5. We need more automation to be able to, thrive and survive as an industry, and it can't come on the back of India, right? I mean, this industry for 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, was like, all right, we can't figure out automation, so let's just outsource the whole thing. So now what you're seeing is suppliers bringing that back from using promo standards, right? It's a quicker, more real-time, cost-effective way to communicate across your supply chain.
So I'm just curious, when this obviously was created, there was a problem we were trying to solve, right? Which was just the inconsistency of data, I would assume. Yep. Is that, do you still see the mission of promo standards? Is that the biggest problem in the industry that promo standards can rectify?
Promo standards is trying to rectify. Honestly, we have realized that we created a standard for product data that is all encompassing for the industry. Now, what has happened is 115 suppliers have tried to ram their crappy data from the last 20 years into this format. So literally, people are, let's say your product description, those things that you have bullet points on your website. So somebody years ago puked some HTML in there to maybe make a bullet point bold. So now they're just taking that HTML crud and jamming it into promo standards, and people consuming it are trying to be like, why is this garbage still in my data? So if your data sucked before promo standards, it's still going to suck. But promo standards has the structure to where if you can fit your data into there accurately, it works. But we've realized that certain suppliers are doing these wonky practices. So we actually, Michael Conway, who's at ASI now, used to be at PCNA, he has spun up a best practices committee within promo standards. And they're really tasked with trying to communicate out to the community like the best way to implement promo standards, because you can't just map data fields and hope for the best. You need to really sit down and look at your data, figure out the gaps, what you can and can't do. But for example, ASI has been pulling our promo standards product data for 2 years and populating all of ESP, right? So it works, and they're doing it with a number of suppliers. So if your data sucked before, it's still going to suck, but there's a pathway to get it to not suck. So there we go.
So I think that sort of opens things up to ask a question about, I think there's probably a right way and not necessarily a right way to do it, maybe.
Yes.
Obviously, we don't all have Eric, you said Schoenberger?
Yeah, Eric Schoenberger hit.
Yeah, so if we don't have if we don't have Eric Schoenberger on the on the IT side of our industry, or not our industry, but our particular companies, whether you're supplier or distributor, obviously, if you're not working with your own software or IT, then you have to sort of outsource those endpoints to sort of a middleman, right?
Yep.
Are you seeing that there are certain people or partners that are integrating better, that's working out better for suppliers and or distributors? Because I know that, it can be costly to have that middleman. Or that bridge, but at the same time, like if it goes wrong and it's costly, it could be really bad.
Yeah, so that's a bit of an interesting question because it comes down to what system you're using, right? There are people in the industry who have kind of centralized themselves around certain technologies. So like there's that whole NetSuite push that's going on in the industry. A lot of your mid to large tier distributors and suppliers are going on the NetSuite. So there's a guy, Sam Hornstein, right? He runs Extend Tech. He came from Jetline Prime, all that stuff. But now he's spun off his own company that exclusively does NetSuite stuff, but he also has NetSuite promo standards pieces. So your boy Sam, you used to work with him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What a smart guy, dude.
Yeah. So Sam's got his gig. So it really depends on what system you're using. Now there are service providers in the industry are really jumping on board, right? So I mentioned Facilis earlier. Performa has been a huge contributor to promo standards lately. Obviously the common SKU. So the service providers themselves, are really trying to rally around it. And then, you were talking to somebody about Essent. Essent's also providing these services. So it's really just trying to, find the right person for the technology you're using. The list of service providers who are integrating promo standards on behalf of people, it keeps growing. It's probably 15 to 20 right now that are like main players in this industry. But, I would say if they're a large tech player on the service provider side, they are either doing promo standards like very heavily or have plans to, integrate it into their suite of offerings.
Sure.
So I would imagine the biggest gap to get to a 90% mark that Jeff mentioned before would be just the people not using a system that can, either has it or can implement it because they don't have their own IT. Would you say that's probably the biggest gap for being able to use
I
something?
guess, big picture, if you're not using some sort of system, not integrating promo standards is probably the least of your worries. There's a lot bigger things that are going to come sweeping down your way. But I think what we've seen is there's probably a tier of 200 suppliers ish, maybe 150 that can really do this themselves, and the rest are really going to use the service providers. Same thing with distributors. I think I just wrote this down. I have credentials outstanding for over 800 distributors. Right, this isn't a supplier only game. This is reaching tons and tons of distributors. And then every day I transact data with 350 unique distributor accounts using promo standards, right? These are real things. This isn't just like, this isn't PCNA and HIT transacting business with Staples and Geiger and Halo. Like this is a wide open thing that has wide adoption. And that's what, our big mission is, pushing adoption for that supply chain efficiency. We have this concept of membership right now with promo standards, and that's really just to be able to funnel our adoption and making sure that as the IP of promo standards is now owned by the organization, or just it's a fine line, and it's not just for the big guy. I mean, ASI being big behind it, Common SKU, Facilis, Performa, these guys who have huge reaches into the smaller and mid-sized distributor markets are really getting behind it. So it's not just a top 20 supplier distributor game.
Okay, so John, with that being said, then what's the catch? What is keeping everybody from being on this? Why? I mean, it sounds like this would be like, it's not rocket science. It sounds
It's
like
not,
easier.
it's not rocket
Computer
science.
science.
It's having it's really two things. A, having your company ownership buy into it and realize that, you really need to do this. It's an organizational buy-in. Some people just have crappy data, or they don't have their data, or they farmed their data out to India 20 years ago and they have no clue how it works. It's not a priority to some smaller companies who really don't see that ROI. Like, obviously there's a bigger ROI on a higher transactional distributor or supplier, right? I mean, SNS, it was an early adapter to promo standards, and with your order transaction volume, that makes sense. But even to the small distributor or supplier, there is ROI there. Like, just go out and slap up an order status integration, and that's going to reduce the number of phone calls coming into your call center and the number of mistakes, back and forth.
100%.
So it's just the ROI is there. It's just, you have to have, there's so many things going on right now. The Rona kind of threw a big old brick at everybody. And, everybody's trying to bounce back from that. But, it's just getting your ownership and your leadership of your company to see the value in getting your game together in terms of technology integrations.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because I know that was the question I wanted to ask too, with, because obviously having special guests on the show, like coronavirus has been at the sort of forefront of all of our conversations to some extent. So I wanted to ask, has coronavirus, or how has coronavirus sort of affected promo standards and people's ability to jump on board? Because I did a couple of the promo standards 101 type of classes that you guys did at Expo. And, you guys had, a projected growth chart that just showing incredible growth, like exponential growth, which is phenomenal. And I think most people do see the advantages of jumping on board with promo standards. But has this year sort of thrown a wrench into those projections at all? And how do you?
It's thrown a wrench probably into the organizational aspects of promo standards. So we had this budget that was based around travel, in-person meetings, trying to gather our committees together, our standards committee, our technologists, and have them meet multiple times throughout the year. And the organization was actually going to fund those and because that's where we get that collaborative environment that drives forward our technology. So they obviously tapped the brakes on that. But we saw when shit hit the fan in March, people didn't stop working on integrations. The companies that had the technology, obviously people dialed back, but it seemed like there was some distributors, suppliers went into like hunker down, just survive mode, but then others used that opportunity to get involved in integrations, because those are those cost saving projects that really pay dividends in the future. Now, obviously, things quieted down, and I'd say probably about June, the integration world kind of woke back up. And now, we've been seeing, right now we're talking with, PSDA, the print side of the world, and trying to figure out how we can integrate print and promo through promo standards and see if they work together. So it's alive and well now. It took a big hit, but there was oddly some small, nimble companies that really used the Rona to double down on integration technology.
That's awesome. What about decorators? You have decorators involved in this at all, or?
So, that's an interesting piece, right? So, like in promo standards, what is a decorator? Does a decorator own your data? So a decorator can obviously use promo standards POs, right? Where the gap is with decorators, it's tough for them to really wrap their heads around the product data offering, right? What is the data that a decorator sells? Like, are they just going to take every S&S shirt, add their decoration on it with all the options, and repuke it out to the industry? I don't know if that works all that well, right? Obviously, HIT does that, as being that all-in-one. So the large, the SNSs, Alphas of the world who do that can roll that into their offerings. But it's for decorators, I would say take advantage of order status, order shipment notifications, because that's big, right? POs and invoices are huge, because everybody hates the invoicing process of that three-way triangle. But use those pieces and don't try to tackle product data first, because it has its challenges. Now, the next challenge is how do you transact a clean PO without good product data? But people are figuring it out.
I think inventory is a big endpoint too, right, John? Because I know a lot of distributors are constantly wanting to know what inventory is live on the floor.
To give you an idea, in the last 24 hours, I've processed about 250,000 inventory requests via promo standards. right?
Wow.
So I mean, this is me, right? There's 40 suppliers larger than me. So these things are getting heavily used, right? Like ASI every hour pulls my live inventory. Any promo every 15 minutes is pulling all my live inventory, right? That whole concept of calling up a supplier to get their inventory levels, hopefully is dead. So.
And anyone who doesn't see the value in this has not had to process a PO with limited information on it. Honestly, I remember when I worked at Jetline, I think Eric one day just said, you know what, I'm gonna just look at every single PO that comes through, and I think it was something upwards like close to 78% of them had to go back to the customer if it was missing a color, something. You know what I mean? So I think by standardizing everything, it really kind of makes it a time saver. Like, and I think that's what people are missing. It's saving time, guys, and time is money. I just posted something this morning on Facebook, not promo standards related, but it kind of like I've had this project that I've had to do since this summer, and as far as I got was today asking someone else to help me do it. So people that are busy, they run their busy lives, they've got work, they have families and everything. I feel like promo standards is just huge for that element alone. Now, John, I might have missed this. Sorry, I know I'm lagging a little bit. Is there a CRM built into that? Is that with all the data and everything?
Who is this? Who are we talking about?
I'm talking about you, promo standards.
Oh no, so promo standards, no, there isn't, like, that's the thing. Like, promo standards is not an application. It's not a piece of software, right? It's a technology communication standard. Now, the fine folks at commonsku, Performa, ASI, they've woven all this stuff into their platform. So it's, right, there isn't like a website where you go in and you pull all this stuff in, but there are service providers actively weaving this into their offerings and using this real-time Facilis, right? That they were one of the first adapters to do this. So it's not, there's not like a Salesforce.com that Promo Standards runs.
Okay.
But yeah, it's it's growing.
Because I know you were talking about Sam earlier and doing a big NetSuite thing, and NetSuite's a CRM. So I didn't know if that would.
So yeah, so the way you do it with that is like you spin up NetSuite, you give old Sam Hornstein at Extendtech a call, and he plugs his piece in that kind of automatically links you up with Promo Standards. So it's pretty cool. It works actually. I mean, there's a significant number of people using it daily. So,
hey John, I'm curious. You guys talked about inventory, PO, consistency, color. Those are some of the benefits, obviously, that you could see from a distributor perspective. But what's the future look like for promo standards? Do you guys have anything out there where you wish you could send more data this way, or both directions, or?
Yeah, like, well, what are some things we haven't tackled? I think that we can get better at the pricing options. Like, we have a great service product pricing configuration that handles the oddities of our industry. But we could really get better at the proofing process. Like, somehow we're trying to address that now with our new version of our order status standard is trying to handle, like, when shit hits the fan on an order, it doesn't do you a lot of good if I just tell you your order's on hold. But if I tell you your order's on hold and you click this link and you can resolve that hold yourself, or, here's the action you need to take, that's when we can really drive change, right? It's right now I'm telling you, your order's on credit hold, but I'm not providing you the link to remove it from credit hold. Like, here's a link to pay it. So we're making that transition from just data to actionable data.
Yeah,
so that's yes, exactly. So that's how we can really drive down transactional friction. And at the same time, it's kind of a personal desire of mine, but the industry is dying for a virtual solution, a virtual logoing solution per se. So we're trying to, one of the things that is on, like, way down our roadmap is trying to help map coordinates on some of those blank images to be able to know and help the auto placement of orders, right? So there's a lot of cool things that are in the hopper, but we realize we have some house cleaning to do today. There's some pieces in the existing standards that just need to be fixed. Right now, there's a big debate on if our pricing should include decorations included in the price or not included in the price and make it this additive nature. So there's, like, real problems, and then there's the cool problems we want to solve. So it's trying to find a balance between, both of those.
It's interesting you mentioned that two-way data, because that's one of the things that we were, it's a lot of one-way information from a distributor perspective, and it's great because it does help you provide better data to go out, but just opening it up in both directions to, like you said, solve problems would
Yeah,
cut down significantly.
If I tell you that you didn't select a decoration location on your PO, that's great. But if I gave you a way to fix that correction and it fixed itself, and then if that does it inside of your system and I don't need it, now we're talking a whole new ballgame. So, it's trying to get more actionable stuff to get these orders off hold, get them moving. Obviously, we want them to come in right the first time, but proofing, right? Proofing sucks in this industry. Everybody's got their own solution, and nobody has a standardized way to do it. And I'm not sure if it's not an easy one to crack, but there's a lot of people who see a lot of ROI in solving the proofing process.
Let me ask you, do you see any negatives to promo standards?
Ooh, that's a question I've actually never been asked. I think there's a negative connotation that it's a large player only club to try to squeeze out the little guy. And it could be perceived that way if it weren't for these crap load of service providers swooping in and actually bolstering their offerings to the smaller players. On the negative side, I mean, look, EPS, here's the big negative side. So EPSA did this, right? They tried to do this and they failed because they used an automotive standard and try to make promotional products work that way. Promo standards, it's the reason we set up a non-for-profit org, because there are 700-800 companies that are relying on this as part of their order flow. So the negative is we can't let them down, right? We can't fail. We can't put a standard out there that doesn't meet the needs. So we've put in an extensive approval process to make sure that our standards are going through testing and meeting the needs of the entire promotional community and not just meeting the needs of 3 suppliers and 3 distributors. So, we walk a fine line between, adoption and then getting it right? Because the negatives can be as if we make a standard that sucks and everybody adapts and it just doesn't work, now we failed, right? We need to make sure that these things actually meet the real needs of the day in, day out order of the industry.
So I think the technology can make people a bit lazy. So in the sense of, like, we talked about inventory or live inventory being a potential, or it is an endpoint. How do you combat that if you have solutions for inventory issues? Like, you're on the supplier side. I know HIT's on the supplier side. So how are they addressing, distributors taking the shortcuts of just going and looking up live inventory as opposed to actually thinking about solutions to still get that product that they might not have enough on the floor to fulfill?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the biggest ROI of inventory and that aspect is, do you have it, yes or no? Like, now the question is, if I don't have it, when am I going to get it? And that determines when you're going to send me the order. But there's other things you can do with inventory. I mean, there's like large data analytics pieces you can do with inventory. It's like, maybe alert me when I have these 12 products in a program if they drop below a certain level, right? It doesn't just have to be a yes, no type, query. It's, query it and say, hey, this is this product is getting low. Maybe you take an actionable item to your distributor customer or to your, end buyer and say, hey, you might want to place your order soon because it's dropping below a threshold that you like to keep, right? So it's not just yes, no, getting lazy, right? It has a lot of ROI for, like, do you have it, yes or no, determines on if I send you order. But there's cool things that were just with inventory alone, you can create a much better service offering across your supply chain.
That was a great question, Jeff, to get a great answer out of John, because I think what we're now seeing is that there's a lot of little key components to this entire program, the promo standards, that a lot of people just don't even not necessarily understand, but don't know about. That alone can make the difference, night and day difference of getting that inventory.
Yep.
So,
And I know we're running out of time. Jeff, your question actually made me think of something, because I know with not everybody being part of promo standards, from our customer service rep perspective, they'll when they go to check, or excuse me, a sales perspective, when they go and they check orders, and like in a Facila system, if we're using, we're so used to most of them having promo standards, but there's some that don't, right? So it could that's where we can fall into this trap of thinking that everyone in the system is part of the same promo standards, and they're not. And that can be a tricky thing in a CRM.
putting my supplier Starline hat on is you should just do business with
there you go.
with people you like, and that make the process easy to do business with. But putting my promo standards hat on, that's where Facilis and the large distributors reach out and say, hey, look, 80% of our business is done with promo standard suppliers. Maybe you should be in that 80 because that 20% keeps getting smaller and smaller, right? There's, the largest pushes have come from Halo, Geiger, Facilis, ASI, these, large perennial players driving that adoption because, ultimately, if I can save $5 by placing an order with SNS versus with supplier X, where am I going to send my business?
Yeah.
Where you can save the money for sure. And that actually brings me to one last question from myself, and then I'll ask Meg and Steven if they have any other questions for you before we sort of terminate the podcast. But I know on your website you guys have like the primary video there, and it talks about one of the suppliers that has recently done sort of a study as far as like how many calls come in and how much time is taken up by orders that are improperly placed. They talk about, I think it was 432 calls a day on average. And obviously that's a lot of intake, like you were talking about, and so, you extrapolate that out to the 260 working days. It's like 112,000, minutes.
It's a lot.
Whatever. It's a lot. So it ultimately equates to like $112,000 or something like that you can save on the return on investment with adopting something that answers those questions and eliminates those calls. Are there any other statistics that you'd like to put out there to people? They take this as an opportunity to sort of plug promo standards and why people should get involved and really where that ROI is.
Yeah, I mean, look, so when this initially started, so obviously everybody knows that Halo is a big proponent of promo standards. They're one of the founders, one of the key people pushing this. So Erwin Goldstein heads up their development over there. So early on, with just order status and order shipment notifications alone, we did a study between our two companies and the amount of times that we exchange both phone calls and emails. And we did it before an integration and after the integration. And we dropped our number of communications back and forth between our companies 75%, meaning that there were 75% less emails and phone calls between, a medium-sized supplier and one of the largest distributors in the industry. I mean, those numbers are real. Like I threw out some, adoption numbers earlier. Like there's over 150 suppliers pushing 1,000 endpoints. I have 800 distributors using it. That doesn't include all the people who use, the ASI system, every single Performa member, right? All the common SKU users, right? There's a huge reach, and don't just think that it's the biggest trap is that you think that's just something that Alpha, SNS, and Sanmar use, right? Yes, they use it. They use it a lot, and they're getting a ton of data. But there are, like I said, 147 suppliers smaller than them that are also using it. So it's not that hard. You need to make an investment in technology and get your game together there. Get somebody on board or hire somebody, contract somebody out to do this for you. But it works, right? This is not some beta project that 3 people are done. We're 6 years into doing this. I have real numbers where I'm transacting millions and millions of transactions a month, even at Starline, to make this happen. So that's my soapbox.
Meg, Steven?
So real quick, I have 2 quick questions. First one, John, I wanted to give you the opportunity to plug the podcast that you're doing with my buddy Brian Porter.
Yeah. So actually, for the 3 people watching this live right now, in 21 minutes, we are doing a BP&J with all the rising stars. It's going to be a big hot mess. This guy right here is going to be on there. We're going to try, right? I've never tried to do a 12-person live Zoom before, but we're going to see what happens. So yeah, BP&J, lighten it up on there. It's a lot more entertainment and a lot less educational value, but it's the most fun 20 minutes of the week.
Oh, good. You mean
until this?
Until this. This is the longest one I've ever done. So we're going on 40 minutes here. We're making it happen. I don't know.
Well, my last question to you is: I didn't think anyone loved garlic more than I did for you. I don't know.
I have a German style lacto fermentator, so I normally make sauerkraut in there. But I thought it'd be funny to ferment garlic. It took 15 pounds of garlic and about 5 months of fermentation for it to actually do its process.
Yeah.
Then the problem is 15 pounds of peeled garlic that you have to do something with. So
That's not a problem. I know people who love garlic.
What is fermented garlic?
Yeah.
We're going down a whole nother rabbit.
Yeah. We should just.
This is another podcast.
We should hit the end button.
I'll use my question. What is fermented garlic?
There you go. Just
It's gross. It's like sauerkraut, right? That's how you make pickles. You use the like natural fermentation processes. I did that to garlic, and it was gross. So
was it really? It was gross.
It was not good. It was not good. It didn't mellow enough. It needed to mellow, and I got tired of waiting for it to mellow. So don't do it. It's a big life mistake.
I'm super garlic. All right, I'm done with my question. Steven?
Oh, I used mine. I'm good.
Fair
I just want to know where I can buy some sanitizer.
Garlic of a podcast.
Guys, I've got a real quick question for you. Any of you like having any ideas as to like maybe a really cool hip industry that hasn't really been affected in a negative way by coronavirus?
Grocery stores.
Yeah, that too. I'm thinking more along the lines of a little cannabis. Cannabis. Yeah, so, obviously these guys over at TechWeld, they've got this whole cannabis product line. It's called their new Leaf line. And they've recently launched their cannabis line of products that would, and they'd like some word of mouth marketing to sort of help promote the line. Obviously, alcohol, cannabis, all that good stuff. Like there's some actual industries that have been positively affected by this whole mess, believe it or not. So that's obviously running strong. So go check out some of TechWeld's cannabis products, and they've also got another sort of idea that works really well with everything that's happening in the digital age and the whole Zoom life. They've got these custom kits that they've pushed out as well, in their whole Come Kit Around With Us initiative. Basically, they've got 8 different stock packaging ideas for their kits. EVA bag, their PVC tent pouch, PVC tube, organza bag, pillow pouch, BTL 202 30-ounce tumbler, and a retro lunchbox as well. So not many players in the industry are really focusing too heavily on kits, which allows them to hone in on the market and to market these products and avoid, to expand upon the already vast kit line that they have. So definitely go check them out at techweld.com. Kits, cannabis line, anything else that's popping right now would be hugely advantageous for you. John, any last comments or anything else you'd like to plug before we say goodbye?
No, just get out there and get your tech game in order. Make sure your product data doesn't suck, and you'll be good to go.
Very good. So Mandy Rudd says garlic. Tim Hill says get me on the list, and he likes garlic as well. Javier Melendez says that he would like that alert. That must have come in a couple minutes ago. So I'm not sure if you know what he's talking about there, but he would like that alert to give it would be great if you had products in a company store or dropship program.
Yep.
That was, I think, 7 or 8 minutes ago. So ultimately, John, really appreciate you being on with us today to clear up some of the promo standards, issues that we didn't necessarily address properly the first time around. And thanks for clearing it up. Thanks for joining us, and really appreciate you. Meg, Steven, good having you as well.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye. Thanks, John. It's good seeing you guys.
And we're done.